Hey guys, tonight we step into the muck and mystery of medieval life, and not just any life. No, you're pregnant. In a village of maybe 300 souls, nestled somewhere vaguely English, probably damp, definitely smelly, and bursting with judgment. The air's heavy with wood smoke, pig stink, and the sound of chickens that always seem louder when you have a headache. And this morning, you do. You wake up before the sun, huddled under a wool blanket that smells like last year's sheep. Something's wrong. Your stomach curls in protest. You think, maybe it was the turnips, or maybe that weird meat pie. But deep down, you already know. And yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull your shift on and shuffle outside. The cold mud sucks at your toes through worn leather shoes. Everything smells like wet straw and goat. You bend to grab water from the well and gag. Again, the third morning this week. But still, you haul the bucket back, pretending it's just a bad eel from dinner. There's no pregnancy test, no pamphlets, no pink lines to pee on. Just nausea, exhaustion, and your sister-in-law raising an eyebrow when you drop a basket. She tells her neighbor. The neighbor tells her brother. He tells the baker, who tells his wife, who tells the priest. By noon, the whole village knows. But let's rewind to breakfast, if you could call it that. You chew bread so hard it feels like punishment. You pretend to enjoy broth that tastes like someone whispered meat at a pot of water. Still, your stomach flip-flops. You excuse yourself, duck behind the hut, and throw up with all the grace of a cow tipping over. It's quiet here, except for the constant cluck of chickens and distant sound of a baby crying next door. Your neighbor had Hayes last month. Third baby. Second stillborn. No one talks about it, but you heard the wail cut short. You try not to think about it. You return to chores. There's no rest. No take it easy. You scrape moss off the roof with aching arms. You knead dough with arms that shake. You tend the hearth, the animals, the toddlers tugging at your skirt, all while your body's already hosting something else. Historians still argue whether early medieval women even understood pregnancy in biological terms or saw it as more mystical, a blessing, a punishment, a twist of fate. Most likely, a messy blend of all three. The first trimester doesn't come with celebration. There's no gender reveal, no pastel cake, just morning sickness, paranoia, and an overwhelming urge to sleep for a year, which isn't an option. You're expected to keep up, maybe even harder now, as if ignoring your swollen breasts and dizzy spells will make the danger disappear. Fringe record from obscure abbey journals mention strange cravings. Ashes, clay, fish eyes. You hear tales from old women who swear it means a boy if you crave onions, a girl if you hate light. You try not to laugh, because laughing hurts your back already. And then there's Agnes, midwife, healer, sometimes considered a witch depending on the day and who's watching. She arrives uninvited, clutching a pouch of herbs that smell like burned socks and dead bees. She peers into your eyes, pokes your stomach like a loaf of suspect dough, and asks about your urine. You answer honestly. She nods like that's what she feared. She pulls out a small bowl, asks you to relieve yourself. You do. She stays into it. The color, the bubbles, the way it settles. Yup, she says. You're with child. How accurate is this method? Honestly, debated. Historians point out that urine inspection was common, but whether it had any medical merit is still hotly contested. Some think it was just for show, to make the healer look wise. Others say it was surprisingly intuitive, based on changes in color and smell. Doesn't matter to you. You're pregnant now. It's official. Agnes spits over her shoulder to ward off spirits, mutters a prayer in Latin and some old English curse words, and tells you not to eat anything salted on Thursdays. No explanation. Just don't. You nod. Of course. Obviously. By evening, you're lying on a pallet stuffed with straw, staring at the thatch above your head. There's a draft. There's always a draft. You curl onto your side, but everything aches. Your back, your legs, even your scalp. Maybe it's fleas. You hope it's just fleas. Sleep doesn't come easy. There's too much on your mind. What if the baby's malformed? What if you die? What if you survive and it doesn't? What if the priest finds out you haven't confessed in weeks and blames this whole thing on sin? You're already thinking of names. Names tied to saints, to seasons, to grandparents long dead. But you don't speak them out loud. Not yet. That would be tempting fate. And you've heard what happens to women who tempt fate. Outside, an owl screeches. A bad omen, they say. Or maybe it's just an owl. Who knows anymore? You drift into sleep, half dreaming of wolves in the woods and bread that doesn't hurt your teeth. And beneath it all, a quiet knowing. The village knows. And it's only going to get harder from here. You're barely awake when you hear it. The low murmur of two women outside your window. Your name, followed by a huff, a snort, and then the unmistakable hiss of judgment. You're not even out of bed, and already you're a conversation piece. In a village like this, there are no secrets, just pauses before the rumors start. Your sister-in-law, good old Goddess with a squinty eye and louder than necessary voice, has probably told half the town by now. She looked peaked, she said, threw up near the well, dropped a loaf of barley bread. Clearly, you either cursed or carrying. Spoiler alert, they think it's both. By mid-morning, you can feel it, the shift in air when you pass. Women stop weaving to watch you. A man at the smithy raises an eyebrow. Even the miller's deaf aunt squints suspiciously, like she smells your shame. And she probably does. Soap's not exactly part of your daily life. You try to carry on like nothing's changed. But everything has. You're no longer just you. You're that girl, the one in trouble. Even if you're married, even if your belly's still flat, the gossip begins to calcify into expectation. You learn fast. Eye contact is currency, and you're short on funds. The market's the worst. You drop by for onions and get served a side of passive aggression. Old Alfredo leans across her cart and says, "Best eat for two now, eh?" You smile tightly. She means well. Maybe. Or maybe she's just the mouthpiece of everyone's curiosity. Either way, you buy the onions and retreat. Historians still argue whether gossip in small medieval communities served a social function or was just plain nosiness dressed up in a bonnet. But here, now, it feels like a surveillance network powered by bread ovens and church pews. Still, you're not totally without allies. One or two women nod kindly. One leaves a dried herb sachet on your doorstep. Lavender and tansy to ease sickness and keep bad dreams away. You don't know who left it. That almost makes it better. But not everyone's subtle. Remember Ethelwyn, thin as a rake, always twitching like she's hiding a stolen chicken? She corners you outside the bake case. Asks if the child is your husband's. Loud enough for the baker's apprentice to freeze mid-need. You stare at her. You want to scream. You want to laugh. Instead, you shrug and say, "Mayhap it's the bishop's." That shuts her up. For a while, you start to understand the game. If you look ashamed, they feast on it. But if you smile, really smile, like you've got a secret and they're too stupid to know it, they back off. You can't control the rumors, but you can control how you walk through them. Want comfort? No mirrors. You don't have to watch your body change. No daily surveillance of puffed cheeks or swollen ankles. Just a vague, growing discomfort in your bones and joints. But you do notice that your bodice is getting harder to tie, that your old shift gapes oddly at the waist. Still, you don't say a word to your husband. Not yet. Men don't do pregnancy. They do fields, taxes, and ale. Maybe he's guessed. Maybe he hasn't. Either way, his silence protects him from having to care too soon. You don't blame him. Much. It's not like you can rush to a doctor. There isn't one. The nearest learned man is 5 days' ride away, and he probably thinks a uterus is a wandering creature prone to hysteria. Literally. Hysteria, the womb moving around your body and causing trouble. A popular belief. Charming, right? So you stick to women's knowledge. Midwives, herbalists, and gossip, weirdly enough. Because for all its cruelty, gossip is also how people learn. You learn not to stand near walnut trees while pregnant. Makes the baby bald. Not to spin wool during a thunderstorm. Summons spirits. Definitely don't let a cat cross your path. or sneeze near you. Big no-no. One woman tells you to sleep with an iron key under your pillow. Another swears you should eat ashes every new moon. Keeps the baby clever, she says. You try one of these things. You'll never admit which. Quirky tidbit time. There's a rumor going around that if you look at a hair while pregnant, your baby will be born with a hair lip. You're now deeply suspicious of every rabbit in the hedgerow. It's probably nonsense, but you avoid looking at them, just in case. You can't afford weird-shaped babies. No one can. By week's end, you've learned that being pregnant isn't private. It's a public transformation. Your womb, your body, your fate, they belong to everyone now. People claim your story like they wrote it themselves. You try not to mind. You fail. Then you try again. At the church on Sunday, you feel their eyes during the sermon. Father Bernard drones on about virtue and sin. And though he doesn't look at you directly, you swear you feel the weight of his gaze. His voice lifts slightly when he says purity. It drops meaningfully at temptation. Coincidence. You kneel. You pray. Not for forgiveness. You're not sure you've sinned. No, you pray for strength. For silence. For the days when your body was just your own. You miss those days. And so, one morning, when you find yourself crying over burnt porridge while a goat chews your sleeve, you let it happen. You cry until the goat gives up and walks away. You cry because you're scared, and everyone seems to think that's scandalous. But you also start to find strength. In the cracks. In the knowing glances of the other women. In the midwife's quiet nod. In the warm bread left mysteriously at your door. Because while gossip may be the village sport, solidarity is its hidden rule. You just have to know where to look. Agnes comes back. Of course she does. She never really leaves. Not mentally, not spiritually, and certainly not when she thinks someone in the village is in a delicate condition, which, in her mind, is practically a mystical crisis. She doesn't knock. She just lets herself in like a crow through a loose shutter. You're kneading bread, sort of, and she peers at your belly like she's reading a bad omen in a lump of dough. You're late, she says. You blink. Late for what? Your moon blood. She says it like it's a weather report. You nod. Over 2 months. She purses her lips. Then we've little time. Little time for what exactly? Agnes doesn't say. Instead, she settles into your only proper chair, pulls out a leather pouch full of dried roots, feathers, some mystery objects that probably once had legs, and, curiously, a bit of blue thread. You don't ask. She takes a spoon from her own sleeve. No, really. A spoon. From her sleeve. Let's have a look at your water. Right. The urine thing again. This time, she sprinkles some rosemary into the bowl before you even sit down. She hums a tune. You're not sure if it's a hymn or something older. Something pagan, perhaps. Historians still argue whether midwives in these villages blended Christian practices with folk magic, or if that's just a romantic modern take. But watching Agnes now, you bet your last onion she's doing both. She watches the liquid with deep concentration, as if it might suddenly speak. Then she announces, the child is strong. You don't ask how she knows. You don't want to question the only person who seems remotely confident in a world that's making less and less sense. She leaves a list. Avoid salted meats, sleep with a clove of garlic under your tongue once a week, and don't touch anything made of ashwood. The baby doesn't like it, she says. Right. Okay. But here's the real reason she's come. She needs to examine you. Now, there's no polite way to say this. Medieval pregnancy checkups are intimate. No gloves. No sterility. Just Agnes's cold fingers and your self-control. She prods your belly, presses your sides, mutters to herself. Then she nods. Quickening will come soon. That's the moment you first feel the baby move. It hasn't happened yet, but now that she's said it, you start noticing every flutter, every twinge. You lie awake at night, hand on your stomach, waiting, wondering if a fart might be a miracle. Spoiler, sometimes it is just a fart. Days pass, then weeks, and then there. One morning, while milking the goat, it happens. A soft shift, a ripple beneath your ribs. You freeze. The goat pulls free, but you don't care. You felt it. You actually felt it. It's real now. You whisper it to Agnes the next time she visits. She nods with a satisfaction that borders on smug. A boy, she says. Moves like a fish. Historians still debate whether people could truly detect gender through womb movement or if it was just wishful thinking. But everyone in your village believes Agnes can. You half believe it too. Agnes brings a charm, a small linen pouch tied with hair. Yours? Hers? You don't ask. She tells you to wear it around your neck, inside your shift. Protection, she says. From the unseen. Unseen what? Spirits. Envy. The air. You wear it anyway. The village's attention shifts a little now. You're not just a scandal or a secret. You're an inevitability. A future. A woman in bloom. As the butcher's wife says with a forced smile. Still, you're watched. Not just by neighbors. By the church. Father Bernard pays you a visit. He brings a prayer book and a stern look. He asks how you're feeling, but it's clear he doesn't want an answer. He's here to ensure the child will be baptized, that you're not harboring sin, that you haven't been reading anything suspicious. You haven't, mostly because you can't read. He places his hand on your shoulder and prays. His hand is heavy, warm, and utterly uninvited. You close your eyes and wait for him to leave. He does. Eventually, he leaves behind a handful of holy water and the kind of silence that clings to your walls for hours afterward. That night, you cleanse yourself with herbs from Agnes's kit. You're not sure if it helps, but it smells like sage and strength, and that's enough. There's a fringe belief, whispered by women in secret, that when a baby quickens inside you, your soul becomes partially split. Part of it grows out of you, making you more open, more vulnerable. To spirits, to sickness, to sorrow. You believe it now. Your dreams get stranger. You dream of forests growing from your stomach, of wolves carrying babies in their mouths, of the moon slipping down from the sky to rest on your chest. You don't tell anyone. Instead, you go about your days slower now. You move differently. Everyone does around you, like they're afraid to startle the future. A child is a hope, but it's also a risk. Every new life is a gamble with death, and everyone in this village knows it. Still, you feel the baby roll under your skin like a wave on a lake, and despite the fear, you smile. For now, the baby is safe, but the village is watching. And Agnes says your cravings will start next. It starts with onions. You can't stop thinking about them. Raw, pickled, roasted, stewed. You dream about peeling layer after layer until you reach the soft, secret center of the universe. You wake up with your mouth watering and a stomach already churning. By midday, it's not just onions. You want fish, specifically the smoked eel from the tanner's cousin who only sells them on Thursdays. Of course, it's Tuesday. Of course, the tanner's cousin is out of town. Of course, you cry. Your neighbor offers you a boiled turnip instead. It's supposed to soothe the womb. You thank her, pretend to nibble, and then quietly feed it to the dog. He looks betrayed. You don't blame him. Cravings become part of your identity now. Some women in the village think they predict the child's fate. Sweet things? A gentle child. Sour? Mischievous? Burnt toast? Better not talk about that one. Old crones mutter about how what you eat imprints itself on the baby. Too many berries, and the child comes out spotted. Too much rabbit, and it'll be twitchy. Heaven forbid you eat a hare. It's practically asking for a cursed child. Historians still argue whether medieval people genuinely believed food shaped the soul of an unborn baby, or if it was more of a comforting folk explanation in a world with no real prenatal science. But in your village, people don't argue. They just believe. Agnes brings you a pouch of dried nettles and insists you boil them into a tea each morning. Strengthens the womb, she says. Tastes like liquid moss. You hold your nose and drink it. She also recommends beer, small beer, the kind children drink, but you're suspicious. For the nerves, she says. You take a few sips and feel sleepier. She's not wrong. You also develop a temporary hatred of cheese. Not just any cheese, specifically the hard, waxy kind of Reeves' wife makes. You used to love it. Now, the smell makes you gag, so hard you almost tip over a barrel of laundry. The Reeves' wife sees your reaction and tells everyone you're cursed. This is how a simple food aversion becomes a village-wide scandal. Soon, people are avoiding you. Some whisper that your cravings mean you're carrying twins. Dangerous, unnatural, unlucky twins. Others say your child is already too clever for the womb, which sounds like a compliment until you hear it said with a frown and a spitting gesture. One girl, barely 12, asks if it's true that eating apples during pregnancy ensures the child will speak early. You tell her you've eaten a dozen apples. In truth, you've eaten one, and it was mostly worm. Your husband notices your new appetite too, though he doesn't say much. Just raises his eyebrows when he returns from the market with a fish pie and finds it mysteriously half-eaten. You tell him it was the cat. The cat hasn't been seen in days. But here's a quirky little truth. Medieval pregnancy cravings weren't just about taste. They were seen as moral tests. Did you give in to temptation? Did you restrain yourself like a good, pious mother-to-be? Some texts even suggest that indulging a craving could mark your baby, literally. Eat too many strawberries, and it might be born with red blotches. Want honey every day? Watch out for a child sticky with sin. Agnes doesn't care about sin. She cares about balance. She brings you foods based on your complexion, your dreams, even the weather. Warm foods on cold days. She says, hand you a roasted root, so burn it might be a rock. Earthy foods for restless sleep. She's half midwife, half menu curator. You start writing your cravings down. Not with ink, because you can't write, and ink's expensive. But in your mind, you build a dream feast. Salted figs, plum pudding, not invented yet, but don't tell your brain that. Warm oat cakes, meat not too stringy, and eggs soft enough to whisper. You imagine eating this meal in a warm house with a floor that isn't dirt and a door that actually closes. In your fantasy, you don't feel sick or judged or tired. You just feel full. And then Agnes warns you about fish on Fridays. Yes, it's allowed. In fact, it's encouraged by the church. But Agnes says not all fish are equal. Some carry moon water in their flesh, and if eaten at the wrong time, can make the baby come too early. You ask what fish that is. She glares. You'll know. Helpful. So now you're craving the exact thing you're told not to eat. Great. To distract yourself, you bake bread. Not because you're hungry, but because kneading it reminds you of something solid, something rhythmic. The ache in your arms feels good, honest. The oven's heat is comforting. The smell distracts your stomach. One morning, while checking on the cooling loaves, you find a small, charred one shaped like a foot. Probably an accident. Probably. You take it as a sign. Still, the strangest craving hits one evening, right as the sun dips behind the treetops. You want dirt. Not just dirt. The dark, cool kind from beneath the berry bushes. You sneak out, crouch low, and scoop some into your hand. You smell it. Agnes finds you like that and simply nods. Some babies want to be close to the ground. You ask if that's bad. Not always, she says. Just don't eat it during a full moon. You don't ask why. Some things are better left unwide. Back inside, you eat bread and try to remember when food was simple. When hunger was just hunger. Not an omen, not a village-wide debate, not something that might decide your baby's entire fate. You chew slowly. You feel the baby stir. And somewhere outside, someone says you've been acting strangely, as if that's not entirely the point. You're only halfway through your pregnancy, and already you feel like a walking superstition, or maybe a waddling one. Either way, everyone around you has an opinion, a talisman, or a quiet curse disguised as advice. You can't just be pregnant. You have to protect the baby. From what? Well, everything, apparently. Start with the air. It's full of dangers, or so you're told. If you breathe the wrong wind on a humid day, that's bad air. Miasma. It can poison your womb. Someone even mutters that swamp vapors cause babies to be born with webbed fingers. Historians still argue whether miasma theory governed all medieval beliefs, or if it was just one thread in a larger, chaotic tapestry of fear, magic, and prayer. But here, right now, you're avoiding fog like it personally insulted your mother. So, you wrap your head in cloth on misty mornings like a peasant mummy, and hurry from place to place with your mouth covered. You look absurd, but no one laughs. They're too busy doing the same. Then there's light. Too much moonlight, especially if you're sleeping. That could draw the baby's soul out. Too little sunlight. The child might come out cloud-headed. That's the term they use. Makes no real sense, but it sounds vaguely terrible, so you take it seriously. Wolf tooth amulets start showing up, Little charms made from canines. The animal, not your mouth. You're told to wear one around your neck at all times. Wards off sharp spirits. You don't know what those are, but they sound stabby. Agnes ties one to your shift when you refuse to wear it. It's not about belief, she says. It's about balance. You're not sure what she means, but she's still the only person who seems calm. So you let her keep doing weird things with feathers and twine and muttering over your fire. One woman tells you not to look at anyone with a squint. Another warns that if a hunchback touches your belly, the baby will come out with a crooked back. But if a left-handed woman blesses you on a Monday, she says, you'll have an easy labor. You start keeping a running list of left-handed women. Someone leaves a bundle of dried herbs on your doorstep. You think it's kind, until Agnes sees it and throws it into the fire. That's hedge magic, she spits, meant to twist the baby's tongue. She doesn't elaborate. You decide it's better not to ask. The church, of course, has its own set of protections. You're supposed to keep a blessed object near your bed. Maybe a relic, maybe a scrap of saint's robe, maybe just a pebble that Father Bernard swears was touched by holy fingers. You settle for a cross carved from you. The wood smells sharp and clean, and the shape comforts you. But still, every creak of the house feels suspicious. Every night breeze might be a bad omen. You hear stories, always secondhand, of babies born with teeth. Babies born with open eyes. Babies born already watching. None of them ended well. Fringe belief alert. Some villagers think pregnant women glow, not with joy, but with soul heat. It's said to attract ghosts. You think that's ridiculous until you wake one night to find a cold patch on the bed next to you. No draft. No open door. Just cold. You move to the fire, bundle in blankets, and mutter a quick prayer. Just in case. Even your dreams feel haunted. You dream of animals, foxes walking upright, birds speaking in your mother's voice, a cow kneeling like a man. Agnes says this is normal. The veil thins when you carry life, she says. You're closer to both ends of the world. She offers you dream tea, chamomile and valerian, and something that smells suspiciously like old feet. You drink it anyway. But not all superstitions are terrifying. One woman brings you a song, an old lullaby in Breton, meant to smooth the baby's bones. You sing it under your breath while you work. It helps, not with nausea or aches or fear, but it helps the part of you that still feels like you. You also hear whispers about certain days being cursed for childbirth. Agnes warns you, whatever you do, don't go into labor on a saint's day. Saints are busy those days. They won't help. You make a mental note. You can't control your due date, but maybe you can bribe the baby with extra broth. There's also the matter of who sees you. You start to keep to yourself more, especially as your belly grows. If too many people watch you, it's said their eye power can drain your strength. The old man by the millstone has a gaze so intense you practically duck when you pass him. And the bell. At dusk, the church bell tolls. You hear it from your straw bed and close your eyes tight. Some say it scares away evil spirits. Others say it calls them home. Either way, you never miss it. So here you are, walking through your village like a bundle of nerves and charm pouches, constantly trying to stay safe in a world full of invisible threats. You light candles on Thursdays. You refuse plums because someone once said they steal the breath. You step over thresholds with your left foot only. You hate how much you believe, but you also hate the idea of not doing it and something going wrong. And there's the trap. Belief is both burden and balm. You go to sleep that night with a scrap of blessed cloth under your tongue, a wolf tooth under your pillow, and a dried clove in your left sock. You say the prayer. You touch the charm. You murmur the lullaby. And somewhere, deep beneath the layers of superstition and silence, the baby kicks, like a reminder that even in the madness, something real and alive is waiting. The sun barely crests the hills, and already your back aches. You haven't done anything yet. Not really, but your body disagrees. That's because today, like every day, isn't about rest or nesting or taking it easy. You're a pregnant peasant, not a lady, not a nun, and certainly not exempt from work. The manor lord doesn't care that your feet are swollen or that your stomach now blocks your view of them. The harvest doesn't pause because you're building a person. So you trudge out with the others, Basket on hip, will cloak dragging in dew-heavy grass, and take your place among the rows of barley. You've done this since you were 10, but never like this. The bending is the worst part. You squat, reach, twist, lift, and repeat, all while your insides slosh like a wineskin half full. You try not to vomit. Again, it's getting harder to pretend you're fine. The women next to you glance over, silently assessing whether you're going to faint or just drop your bushel and cry. It's expected that you'll work until labor. Not out of cruelty, just necessity. Every pair of hands is vital. Fields don't reap themselves. Wool doesn't spin. Cabbages don't pull from the ground by divine intervention. Even a Virgin Mary probably helped with chores before the whole halo and manger situation. You take breaks when you can, sitting on a stump, chewing stale rye, maybe humming the bone-smoothing lullaby under your breath. But mostly, it's constant motion. Your muscles have learned the rhythm of toil. You are sore in places you didn't know could hurt. Historians still argue whether medieval women actually worked in fields deep into pregnancy, or if this image is romanticized. Some claim village networks of care gave pregnant women lighter loads. Others argue that unless you were nobility, your body was considered public labor property, baby or not. Based on your current position, barefoot in a thistle patch, you're leaning toward the latter. The men don't say much. One or two nod respectfully. One pats your shoulder like you're a mule. You brush him off. He laughs. You grit your teeth. Your husband, bless him, does his best. He tries to take on the heavier loads, but even he has limits. Besides, there are days he seems almost proud, like your swollen belly is proof of virility, not risk. Later, you're sent to the river to wash linens. By now your hands are red and raw. The water's freezing. The current tugs like it knows you're off balance. You plant your feet wide and scrub, all while your back throbs and your stomach protests. You hear the other women talking about you. Not unkindly, just knowingly. She'll drop early, that one. Too much lifting. She's carrying wide. That's a girl. You pretend not to hear, but you log it all. They may not be doctors, but they've seen dozens of births. You're listening. You return home and collapse by the hearth. You smell like smoke and sheep and something sour you can't place. Your hands are stained with berry juice and dirt. Your feet are swollen like boiled apples. And yet, there's still spinning to do. Wool waits for no one. You sit at the wheel and try to keep the rhythm. Your legs cramp. The baby shifts uncomfortably, like it's also judging your posture. You mutter something about wanting a new life. The wheel answers with a squeak. You interpret that as agreement. Then comes the funniest part. The village feast. A harvest blessing. Everyone gathers in the clearing, brings stew or bread or boiled whatever. There's music, sort of. A boy with a flute, he's still learning. A woman with a tambourine that's mostly broken. People dance. You sit. One older woman, half blind, claps you on the back and says, "You'll birth a plowman." Strong back. Big head. You smile politely and resist the urge to cry. Food is passed around. Stew, dried pears, roasted chestnuts. You eat too fast and regret it immediately. The baby lurches in protest. You try to hide the burp, but it sounds like a dying bird. Agnes, seated nearby, chuckles into her mug of mead. "You need rest," she whispers. You nod. But where? When? There's no such thing as maternity leave when the pigs need slopping and the floor needs sweeping. No one volunteers to scrub your chamber pot. No one offers to chase your toddler, if you have one, or fetch water from the well. You are expected to endure. Quietly, preferably. And through it all, you fear the signs. Every twinge might be premature labor. Every sharp pain could mean something's gone wrong. But you don't stop working, because to stop is to fall behind. And to fall behind is to invite suspicion, or worse, shame. You remember what happened to Elswith last winter. Went into labor during frost season, collapsed in the fields, lost the baby. Then caught fever. Then died. People still talk about her, though less now. She didn't have a wolf-tooth charm, someone said. Or she looked at the wrong man on a waning moon. More likely, she was just tired. You think about Elswith when your knees tremble on the path home, when your vision blurs during spinning, when your feet slip on slick moss, and you just barely catch yourself. You keep walking, keep working, because this village only knows one thing. Keep going. You haven't bathed in honestly, who's counting anymore? Certainly not you. The bucket baths are so rare and so cold that when they do happen, they're more punishment than refreshment. At this point, you're starting to wonder if pregnancy just comes with a permanent scent, a sort of earthy, sour, livestock meets mildew fragrance. You still try, though. You drag yourself to the stream some mornings and splash water on your face. You wash your hands before meals. You scrape mud off your feet with a flat rock and pretend it counts as self-care. But the truth is, you can't escape the grime. It clings. It multiplies. It follows you to sleep. And you're not the only one. The whole village smells like it's been lightly marinated in smoke and manure. Personal hygiene is more a matter of tradition than preference. Meaning, if no one else is washing regularly, you won't either. Besides, warm water is a luxury, and firewood's too precious to waste on bathing instead of cooking. The well water is clean-sh until the livestock wander too close or a chicken falls in again, or the neighbor's toddler decides it's a splash pool. You fill your jug and try not to think about the frogs. And then, of course, there are the fleas. They love you, absolutely adore you, probably think you're blooming just for them. You scratch at your thighs and scalp so often that Agnes has started smacking your hands like you're a child picking scabs. You'll open your skin, she warns. Let the bad humors in. She's not wrong. Infection is everywhere. Historians still argue whether medieval people were fully aware of germ theory's absence or if they just suspected things got worse when things got dirty. Probably a little of both. They didn't know why infection happened. They just knew that filth invited it. And here you are, a walking invitation. The rash on your ankles? Probably nothing. Unless it's something. The sore on your thigh? Maybe a flea bite. Maybe a boil. Agnes gives you a smear of something sticky and green to apply. Smells awful, works fine. It does neither. You start sleeping with one leg out of the covers just to keep it cool. Toilet matters? Don't even ask. There's no latrine. Not really. Just a designated patch behind the hedgerow, well-trodden and unfortunately too close to the pigs. You go with a stick in hand to chase off curious geese. You learn to squat quickly, listen for footsteps, and pray no one walks by. And yes, you wipe with whatever's dry and available. A leaf, a scrap of linen, that one time moss. Regrets were had. When your belly gets bigger, squatting becomes an adventure in balance. You wobble. You tip. You mutter curses you heard the blacksmith use. One day, you fall sideways into a thistle patch. You emerge with a bleeding elbow and a dignity deficit. Agnes doesn't laugh, but she does hand you a small pot of goose fat. Rub this anywhere tender. But not too much. Grease draws flies. Of course it does. Your shift, once white, is now a kind of permanent beige. You wash it when you can, which is not often, and hang it over smoky firewood to dry. It ends up smelling more like sausage than soap. You decide it's fine. Quirky tidbit time. Some women in the village carry sachets of rosemary or lavender under their bodices. Not just for scent, but as a sort of early deodorant. You try this. It works for half a day. Then you just smell like sweaty herbs. Which, honestly, is an improvement. Bathing isn't completely out of the question. Some folks do manage it once a month during feast days or weddings. There's a communal tub. It's big, made of wood, leaky around the seams, and filled with water that starts warm and ends tepid, cloudy, and alarming. You'd bathe first if you're lucky. Last. Forget it. You remember the last time you tried. You slipped stepping in, cut your shin, fell back onto the floorboards, and nearly knocked over the whole tub. You haven't been back since. Now, you sponge your skin with damp rags and hope for the best. You comb your hair with fingers or a borrowed lice comb that's seen better days. You pick straw from your shift and press your hands to your belly, hoping the baby doesn't mind. But the biggest hygiene hazard isn't the fleas or the filth or even the communal bath water. It's childbirth itself. Agnes explains this in hushed tones while boiling linen strips in an iron pot. The bleeding draws sickness, she says, and the afterbirth, if not buried properly, can curse the whole house. You nod. What else can you do? She also warns you, don't touch iron during labor. Don't touch your own face. And never let your blood fall on a bare dirt. It invites spirits, she says. Things that watch. It sounds ridiculous, until you remember Ellsworth. Again, and the way her house stayed empty for months after. People said it had a smell. Now you believe it might have been something else entirely. So you start preparing. You clean as best you can. You boil water when there's fuel. You collect clean rags. You keep a small pile of rosemary near your bed. You leave your shoes outside the door and sweep the floor more often than usual. It's not enough. You know that. But it's all you can do. Because in this village, pregnancy isn't just 9 months of waiting. It's 9 months of survival. Through sickness, superstition, and sanitation that would make a rat flinch. You scratch another flea bite. Swat a fly. And promise yourself, the baby, at least, will smell fresh. The smell hits you before you even step inside. A mix of singed herbs, old sweat, and something faintly metallic, like rusted iron left too long in the rain. Agnes is already there, seated cross-legged beside the hearth, grinding something greenish-black in a bowl with a stone pestle. She doesn't look up. "Sit down," she says. "You're pale." You feel pale. Your head has been aching for 2 days, your back feels like it's been traded for a sack of rocks, and you've got a weird throbbing pain in your side that makes you want to cry. Then yell, then cry again. Agnes dips her finger in the paste and tastes it. You stay. She smacks her lips thoughtfully and mutters, "Too much mugwort. Needs marigold." Mugwort. That's supposed to ease womb pain, or cause visions, or induce miscarriage, depending on who you ask and how much you use. Historians still argue whether its use was controlled or just trial and error dressed up in herbalist mystique. With Agnes, definitely a little of both. You sit on the stool. It creaks under you. Agnes turns, finally, and peers at your face. You've got liver heat. You blink. What? Your cheeks are red. It's your liver. She grabs a pouch from her kit and pulls out something that looks like dried moss. Boil this. Drink it. Then I'll bleed you. You open your mouth to object. Too late. Medieval medicine is about balance. Hot and cold. Wet and dry. Too much heat, and you're feverish. Too much cold, and you're sluggish. Right now, Agnes says you're too warm inside. The cure? Bleeding. With a knife. Or leech. Guess which one you get. She opens a small wooden box, and inside, 3 sleeper-looking leeches. "These are good ones," she says, "from the riverbank where the moon's full." As if they've been personally vetted by a lunar goddess. You nod. You want to believe. She places one on the soft flesh near your elbow. It wriggles, sniffs, you swear it does, and latches on. You yelp. Agnes hums. You go dizzy. "You'll feel better," she says. "Once it takes enough." Enough of what? You want to ask. But the nausea's back, and your tongue's gone dry. This is what passes for prenatal care. Leeches, mugwort, bitter teas, and faith. She also burns dried fennel on a shard of broken pottery. The smoke curls into your nose and makes your eyes water. Keeps the spirits away, she explains. The ones that creep into the womb and twist the child. You have no idea whether this is science, sorcery, or theater, but you sit still and breathe through your mouth. Agnes moves around you in practice circles, mumbling things that sound half like Latin and half like gossip. Then comes the tonic. You don't ask what's in it. You've learned not to. She hands you a wooden cup filled with liquid that smells like boiled socks. You drink. Immediately regret it. Your throat burns. Your stomach lurches. She pats your hand and says, "Good." That means it's working. Later, you lie on your bed, dizzy and feverish, but no longer in pain. Or at least, the pain is less important than the spinning sensation and your strong suspicion that the walls are breathing. You sleep for nearly a day. When you wake, Agnes is gone. A scrap of wool covers your legs, and a slice of bread sits beside your bed. You eat it slowly, carefully. Everything tastes strange. There are other treatments, too, like pressing a hot iron to your heels to draw sickness downward, or rubbing goose fat into your belly to soften the skin and fool the stretching. One woman swears by cold cabbage leaves. Another recommends sleeping with a pine cone under your pillow for balance. Fringe remedy alert. Someone suggests swallowing crushed pearls. For beauty, she says, so the baby will be smooth. You decline. politely, then immediately scratch her off your midwife shortlist. There's also the ritual bath, rare, sacred, and extremely complicated. You're told to bathe in water boiled with 9 types of flour, drawn at dawn by a child under 7. The water must be poured into the tub by someone who's never lied, which, in this village, eliminates nearly everyone. Still, you manage it, sort of. A quiet girl named Leader offers to help. She collects the flowers. You boil the water. Agnes supervises. The bath is quick, lukewarm, and full of floating petals that keep sticking to places they shouldn't. But afterward, you feel cleaner, lighter, less haunted. And then comes the blood moon. You're warned about it in advance. The midwife, the priest, even your neighbor with the bad eye, they all mention it. Don't go outside, they say. Don't look at it directly. Keep the baby still. You have no idea how to do that. Agnes comes that night and draws symbols on your door with ash and spit. She hangs a charm over your bed, wheat and wormwood, tied with red thread. You don't ask what it means. You just hold your belly and hum the lullaby. You don't sleep much that night. Because here's the thing about medieval cures. They're equal parts comfort and chaos. You never quite know what's real, what's dangerous, and what's just superstition wrapped in sage smoke. Historians still debate whether these treatments helped more than they harmed, or if belief itself made them work. Maybe it's both. Maybe faith is medicine, or maybe Agnes just as good leeches. Either way, you survive another week. And that, for now, is enough. It's Sunday morning, and the church bell tolls slow and heavy, like it knows your joints are aching and it's trying to guilt you anyway. You pull your shift over your head, cover your growing belly with your best, least stained, apron, and make the slow trudge up the lane. Because pregnant or not, church is not optional. And today, of all days, Father Bernard is in rare form. You step into the chilly stone chapel and take your place on the rough wooden bench, knees already protesting. The village gathers around you, bundled in wool, smelling faintly of smoke and onions. You make the mistake of locking eyes with the Reeves' wife, who looks at your belly like it's a heretic. Father Bernard clears his throat and launches into a sermon so heavy on original sin, you feel like he's about to start naming names. And you wouldn't be surprised if yours came up. Because here's the truth. In the eyes of the medieval church, pregnancy isn't just biological, it's spiritual. It's loaded, symbolic. Womb as punishment, as redemption, as warning. You've heard it all before. You know the story. Eve, the apple, the curse, and how every woman since is meant to suffer in childbirth for it. You shift uncomfortably on the bench. Bernard notices. His voice lifts just slightly. And in sorrow shalt thou bring forth children, he booms, quoting scripture with all the subtlety of a thunderclap. For it was through woman that sin entered the world. Several heads turn toward you. You bite your tongue. Historians still argue whether village priests truly believed women were second-class creations or were just towing the theological line. Either way, it's clear who's bearing the blame. Literally. And here's the kicker. Your body isn't really yours. Not in church doctrine. It belongs to God, or your husband, or both. You're a vessel, a symbol, a walking, breathing moral lesson. Not that anyone asked you how you feel about it. You kneel for the prayer, stomach pressed to thighs, and wince. The wooden rail digs into your ribs. You feel faint. A neighbor helps you back to your feet, and Father Bernard eyes you with a mixture of concern and smugness. After the final blessing, you linger at the door, waiting for the crowd to shuffle out. Bernard approaches. His sandals slap the stone floor softly. He doesn't greet you. He simply places a hand on your shoulder and says, "Remember, daughter, to confess often. A clean soul makes for a clean birth." You nod. You don't mean it. You're not sure your soul needs scrubbing. Just your floor. He leaves you with a pinch of blessed salt and the suggestion to avoid anger. The child absorbs your moods. He warns. You want to say, then maybe don't yell at me about eternal damnation. But you hold your tongue. Instead, you go to Agnes. She listens without judgment. She's heard the sermon before. Different priest, different words, same message. They don't bleed, she says, so they think bleeding is punishment. She gives you a thin smile and puts a sprig of rosemary behind your A. You're not cursed. You're tired. Still, Bernard isn't wrong about one thing. You do feel angry. Angry that your every step is measured. That your every mood is watched. That if you complain, someone will say you're being ungrateful. That if you struggle, it's proof you're not holy enough. That pain is considered part of the plan. You go to confession later that week, mostly out of habit. The confessional is a small alcove that smells like mildew and dried sweat. Bernard sits on the other side of the curtain. What sins burden you, daughter? He asks. You consider saying, gluttony, I ate 2 eggs. Or, pride, I want a bath. But instead, you whisper, I'm afraid. There's silence. Then he murmurs, fear is the absence of faith. You leave more tired than when you arrived. Later, as you sit beside the fire, you think about Mary. Holy, glowing Mary. On the painted chapel wall, she always looks serene, even when holding a newborn that definitely just ruined her robe. No stretch marks, no cracked nipples, no back pain. You wonder if anyone ever asked her what childbirth felt like. Probably not. One woman in the village, old Hedda, missing 3 teeth and half her memory, swears Mary screamed during labor, loud enough to shake the stars. You hope that's true. There's a fringe belief Agnes tells you, whispered only between women, that Eve wasn't cursed for sin, but for knowledge. That the pain of childbirth is the price of seeing the world clearly. You think about that a lot, especially when another neighbor hands you a rosary and tells you to pray the baby gentle. You thank her, then mutter something unholy under your breath when she walks away. Still, prayer isn't useless. You do pray, but your prayers are different now. Not the quiet, polished ones from the missal, but rougher, more honest. Let me survive. Let the baby breathe. Let the blood stop when it should. Let someone hold my hand. And when you light a candle, you don't pray to saints. You pray to Ellsworth, to your grandmother, to the nameless women who bled out quietly. No sermon, no hymn, just silence. You pray to them because they know. And even if no one else sees you, maybe they do. Your husband returns late from market. Again, his boots are caked with mud. His breath smells faintly of ale and dried fish. And he's got a smug grin that could mean one of 2 things. He's made a decent trade, or he's heard a joke at your expense and can't wait to tell you. You don't ask. You just take the basket from his hand, peek inside, and try to ignore the mild nausea triggered by the sight of smoked herring. He's proud of the trade. 2 cheeses, a sack of barley, and a small silver brooch. You ask what the brooch is for. He shrugs. Maybe the baby will be a girl. He says it like a gift, like this moment proves he's involved. And in a way, he is. But not in the way you need. Because while your body swells and aches and stretches towards some unknowable end, he still sees your pregnancy as a kind of extension of his good fortune. His family line. His legacy. Your womb is a working piece of his estate. Small, humble, valuable. The men in the village don't talk about childbirth much. That's women's business. They might mention it over ale, usually in hushed tones, or joke about how many children they've sired like it's a harvest count. But they don't help with the hard parts. They don't boil cloth or fetch water or hold trembling hands at midnight. They boast. Your husband isn't cruel. He asks if you're feeling well. You tell him your feet hurt. He pats your arm and says, that's normal. Then he falls asleep before you finish rubbing rosemary oil into your ankles. Historians still argue whether medieval men were truly indifferent or just unequipped to offer support in a world where everything maternal was sequestered in secret. But either way, the result is the same. You carry this alone. Except, of course, for the times he insists on helping. Like when he decides to speak to the midwife himself. He returns for a walk with Agnes and proudly announces, she says you're strong. No need to fuss. As if that's helpful. As if Agnes would ever say not to be strong in front of a man. Or when he insists on picking out birthing tools. You ask what he means. He produces a wooden stool, wide-seated, slightly wobbly, and clearly carved in a rush. Saw it at market, he said it's the kind for birthing. You try it. It creaks ominously. You set it aside. He also starts making plans. Big, abstract plans. If it's a boy, Maybe he'll learn to read. Maybe the Lord will take him on as a page. Maybe you'll move to a better cottage. Maybe, if it's a girl, he doesn't say. You ask him once what he'll do if something goes wrong. He doesn't understand the question. It's not that he doesn't care. It's just that he doesn't see it. The blood, the risk, the way you're one bad hour from disappearing. In his mind, pregnancy is a phase, a waiting period, a long, uncomfortable errand. You go on a house round and come out with a baby. Simple, quirky reality check. There were actual legal texts in the Middle Ages that allowed a husband to make decisions for his pregnant wife, including where she gave birth and who attended it. In some regions, he could even claim property rights over the child the moment it took its first breath. You wonder if your husband knows that. Probably not, but it wouldn't change much if he did. He does things, though. He sharpens the knife for cutting cord. He stacks wood for the hearth. He even patches the roof after Agnes tells him the wrong kind of drip during labor can curse a newborn. He listens to her more than to you. That stings more than you expect. One night, you wait to find him watching you. Your belly rises like a hill beneath the blanket. He reaches out, hesitant, and places a hand there, just for a moment. The baby kicks. He laughs, says, "Feel strong," then rolls over and starts snoring. It's the first time he's touched your belly all week. You lie awake, hand over the same spot, wondering what strong even means. Strong enough to survive? Strong enough to make him proud? Strong enough that you can finally stop pretending you're not terrified? The next day, he boasts at the tavern. She's carrying well, he says. Hardly complains. You hear it from the brewer's wife. She laughs when she tells you. You do not. You wonder what would be like if men could feel what you feel. If just for one day, they carried the weight of a spine that never rests, of joints that feel like splinters, of organs shoved up and sideways by something with knees and opinions. Agnes tells you, men build barns. Women build people. Barns are easier. You remind yourself, your husband is not unkind, just unknowing. And in a world where the church, the law, and even the gods seem to believe that your body belongs to someone else, maybe that's the most dangerous thing of all. The pain wakes you before the rooster does. Not the usual dull ache in your hips or that stretching, tearing throb beneath your ribs. This is different. This is deep, sharp. It comes in waves, like the earth itself is shoving upward from under your spine. You sit up too fast and nearly pass out. Your shift is damp with sweat, even though it's still dark and cold outside. The hearth has gone out. You fumble for the fire poker and knock over a bowl of lentils. It scatters with a sound that feels louder than thunder. Your breath comes in shallow, uncertain bursts. No one else is awake. Your husband is gone, off to market, or the mill, or somewhere you can't remember right now. Of course he is. You try to stand. You don't quite succeed. The pain wraps around your belly like a belt pulled tight by invisible hands. You cry out just once. You didn't mean to, but it escapes anyway, half fear, half fury. The dog whines at the door. You crawl. You make it to the door frame and lean against it, sweat pooling at the base of your neck, your hair sticking to your cheeks. Your feet are freezing. One is numb. You're not sure how long you sat there before the next pain hits. You scream this time, and that gets the neighbor's attention. Footsteps, a voice, then two, then five. They all talk at once, but you only hear one word. Agnes. Someone runs to fetch her. You try to stand. Again, you fail. Your legs are useless. Your belly feels like it's trying to detach itself. You think you might be sick, or dying, or both. You lie flat on the floor and stare at the wooden beams above you, suddenly furious that the ceiling is crooked. You laugh, then cry, then laugh again. It's all very confusing. Agnes arrives in what must be record time. She smells like ash and lavender. Her hands are already busy lifting, adjusting, barking orders. Get water. Light the fire. Where's the birth stool? You want to answer. You want to be useful. But the pain cuts through you like an axe. All you can do is grip the edge of the hearth and let the fire's heat climb up your arm as Agnes kneels between your legs and mutters a prayer you've never heard before. The baby is coming. Too soon? Too late? No one knows for sure. Is it Saint's Day? Agnes asks. You blink. What is it? Saints Day, she shouts again. You think about it. You don't know. Maybe? Probably? It feels like one. It feels cursed. She mutters something unrepeatable and reaches for her satchel. The birth stool is dragged into place. You're lifted, barely, and dropped onto it. Your legs shake uncontrollably. Someone puts a warm cloth in your hand. Another person, maybe the Reeves' wife, maybe his spirit, you're honestly not sure, starts brushing your hair back from your face. Outside, thunder rumbles. Of course it does. Agnes cuts strips of linen and soaks them in something that smells like mint and vinegar. She shoves one into your mouth and says, "Bite." You do. Hard. Then the pain comes again. And again. And again. It doesn't stop. The room shrinks. Time folds. Someone tells you to push. Someone else tells you to wait. You scream at both of them. You grip the birth stool so hard you think your nails might snap. You bite the cloth until your jaw locks. You cry without meaning to. You beg without knowing what for. And still, the baby does not come. Thunder cracks louder now, closer. The thatch above your head leaks onto the floor. Water pools around the stool. Agnes swears. Too slow, she mutters. Too stubborn. Me or the baby? You ask. She doesn't answer. Historians still argue whether birth attendants in medieval villages had genuine medical knowledge or simply repeated what had worked the last time someone didn't die. Right now, you don't care either way. You just want this over. Agnes heats a knife. Just in case, she says. You don't ask what for. She checks the cord. She checks your face. She whispers to someone to get more water, more cloths, something for the afterbirth. You feel like you're floating, then crashing, then floating again. The baby finally crowns. Agnes says so. You scream. You push. You swear you see stars. Maybe saints. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Then relief. Wet. Warm. A sound. Sharp. Piercing. Angry. The baby cries. You collapse. The room explodes in motion. Cloths wrapped, water dumped, blood wiped. A warm weight is placed on your chest. You look down. A baby. Yours. Eyes clenched shut. Mouth wide open. Arms flailing like a drunk beetle. You laugh. You sob. You count fingers. Toes. You're still counting when your husband bursts through the door, soaked and breathless. He sees you. Sees the blood, the chaos, the baby. And for the first time in months, he is speechless. You're too tired to gloat. Agnes looks up. It's a girl, she says like it's a secret. You nod. You already knew. The fire's still going, but barely. It casts just enough flickering light to make the shadows seem taller than they are. You're too tired to be scared, too sore to be proud, and too dazed to believe the warm, wailing bundle on your chest is real. You're still sitting on the birthing stool, though someone's thrown a heavy wool cloak over your shoulders. It smells like smoke and rosemary. Everything smells like rosemary these days. Blood pools beneath you. Not violently, not fast, but enough to remind you that the danger isn't over. Not even close. Agnes moves quickly now, speaking to someone at your side. A girl whose face you can't place. Maybe the miller's daughter. Maybe someone from 2 villages over. Right now, everyone looks like a saint or a blur. Keep her upright, Agnes says. She's not done. Not done. You glance down. The baby's here. Isn't that the end? Nope, it isn't. There's still the afterbirth. You've forgotten about that part. Some women say it's easy. Just a final push and then relief. Others say it's worse than the baby itself. You hope for the former and brace for the latter. Agnes positions herself again. Push, she says. You groan. Again. You're not empty yet, she says calmly. This is what keeps you living. And she's not wrong. Historians still argue whether midwives were taught formal postpartum care or simply learned through generational observation. Either way, Agnes clearly knows what she's doing. She needs your belly firmly, too firmly, and you scream without meaning to. You push. One more time. 2 more. And then release. She catches the placenta in a cloth, examines it by firelight, nods to herself. You're not watching. You're too busy trying not to fall asleep on your baby's damp head. Whole, she says aloud, for everyone's benefit. No tearing. No pieces left behind. She says it like a victory, and it is. Someone takes the afterbirth and wraps it in another cloth, murmuring a few words before stepping outside. You hear the soft scrape of a shovel against frozen ground. It will be buried. Must be. Everyone agrees. It can't be burned, and it mustn't be discarded. Otherwise, you risk sickness. Or worse, the child growing up hollow. Fringe tradition alert. In some villages, it's said that if a fox digs up your afterbirth, your baby will become wild. If a toad finds it, tongue-tied for life. You're not sure who came up with these ideas, but you still ask Agnes to make sure it's buried deep. The birth stool is finally taken away, and you're helped in a bed, or something close enough. A thick pile of straw, warmed bricks near your feet, and a quilt stitched by 3 different hands. You sink into it like a stone into river silt. And still, Agnes isn't done. She checks the baby. Fingers, mouth, back of the neck. She lifts the baby slightly, listens for rattling, feels for lumps. Breath is clean, she says. Neck is strong. She dips a cloth in warm water and rubs the baby's feet. Then she checks you. You're torn, but not badly. She applies something sticky and cold that smells like honey and iron. She ties linen strips tightly around your hips, muttering under her breath the whole time. Will she be all right? Someone whispers. She'll live, Agnes says, if she rests. Everyone looks at you. You want to say, I'll rest when you stop staring, but all you do is nod. The baby begins to fuss, mouth opening like a tiny fish. Agnes takes your hand, guides it. Feed her, she says. Your body is no longer your own. Not really. Not again. You fumble beneath the shift, find your breast, and try to latch her. It takes 3 tries. She sucks weakly at first, then with force that surprises you. You wince, then relax, then cry a little. The girl beside you wraps your hair into a loose braid. Someone tucks your feet under the quilt. Your husband finally speaks. She's beautiful, he says. You glance at him. For once, he looks young, unsure, almost useful. Agnes prepares a bowl of broth. She feeds you by hand, spoon after spoon, like you're a child or a queen. You don't argue. You sip. You rest. You bleed. And you watch the baby sleep. The others leave one by one. Your husband carries the bloody linens outside, his face pale. The girl by the fire dozes. Agnes sits beside you, sharpening a knife slowly, maybe just for the comfort of the sound. She'll need baptism soon, she says softly, before the fever can find her. You nod, because the days after birth are dangerous. Even now, even when the crying is strong and the suckling is sure. Even with prayers and poultices and firelight. You drift to sleep with the baby on your chest and 1,000 whispered warnings floating in your ears. No cold wind, no loud dogs. No one can enter your room without knocking. Salt at the corners of the bed, a sprig of you beneath the pillow, and keep the candle lit. Always the candle, because you've crossed through something now, a door that opens only one way. And for a while, until you're fully back, you're still somewhere between the world of the living and the world of everything else. The first night passes in a blur of heat and blood, and a baby who refuses to sleep unless she's pressed against your chest like she's afraid you'll vanish. You're not sure she's wrong. You drift in and out of a strange, slippery kind of consciousness. Dreams woven with smoke and half-heard lullabies. Every movement sending a reminder that your body is no longer yours. But it isn't just yours either. You wake up in a puddle. Not of water. Not entirely of blood either. Something else. Agnes calls it lochia. She says it with such a casual tone that you wonder if she forgets you've never bled this much without fearing death. She lifts the blanket, nods, then begins to clean you. You're too weak to protest. The baby is in someone else's arms for the moment. You miss her the second she's gone, then feel guilty for not wanting her back right away. Your breasts ache, hot, full, foreign. You try to express some milk into a cloth, but it comes in slow, yellowish, and sticky. Agnes beams. That's the good kind, she says. Colostrum, gold for babies. You think it looks like bad butter. Then come the binding cords. A long strip of wool soaked in vinegar and herbs is wound tightly around your hips, then your abdomen. Agnes pulls it firm, knotting it beneath your ribs. To put the womb back, she says. to keep things where they belong. Historians still argue whether womb binding actually helped recovery or just kept women upright enough to feed everyone else sooner. But here, with the cloth pressing in on you like a second skin, you can't imagine standing upright ever again. And yet, by midday you're walking. Slowly, painfully, but walking. Because life resumes. There's bread to bake, a hearth to tend, a floor to sweep. Though Agnes swats your hand when she catches you leaning for the broom. You want her womb to fall out? She snaps. You didn't think that was a thing. Now you do. Now you definitely do. The pain shifts. Your lower back pulses constantly. Your belly cramps when the baby nurses. You ask Agnes why. She says, that's the womb shrinking. You want to tell your womb to take its time. Your husband tries to help, but he's worse than useless. He holds the baby wrong. He warms the wrong cloth. He spills broth on your foot and says, at least it's not blood. You do not laugh. You are no longer bleeding like a wounded soldier. But you're not done either. The cloth between your legs is changed regularly, soaked and wrung out and boiled. Sometimes you feel faint. Sometimes you shake with chills. Agnes says it's normal. Agnes says a lot of things are normal. But you know the signs. Elsewith didn't make it to day 5. Your temperature rises that night. Not much, but enough. You feel flushed, weak, thirsty beyond reason. Agnes watches you like a hawk. She mixes something from her pouch. More mugwort, some willow bark, a crushed beetle, you think, and presses it to your tongue. Don't sleep yet, she says. You sleep anyway. You dream of dark water, of floating. And when you wake, hours later, you're still burning, but less. The baby is asleep. The candle is still lit. Agnes is snoring beside the fire, knife across her lap. You whisper a thank you. You don't know to whom. Maybe Agnes. Maybe the gods. Maybe the child. The baby stirs. You nurse her again. The pain is less this time. Still sharp, but familiar. You shift her into your elbow and study her face. She looks like you. Like your mother. Like no one. The village women arrive that afternoon with small offerings. A slice of barley bread. A smock cloth. A tiny carved spoon. They call the baby Sweetling and Little Lamb. One woman, a Thelwyn, of course, asks if you've bled too much. She says it like gossip, not concern. You nod slowly. Enough. You don't tell her about the fever. That's your secret. You do ask about Elswith. Quietly. Hesitantly. She bled and bled, says one woman, stirring broth in your pot. Couldn't keep food down. Her man didn't even fetch help. Said it was God's will. You close your eyes. You're grateful for Agnes. Grateful for broth. Grateful for the warm weight of your daughter against your skin. Fringe belief break. One village tale says that if a woman survives birth, she must sleep with one eye open for 6 nights, lest a spirit come to finish what the pain could not. It's dramatic. You laugh, then keep a candle lit anyway. Agnes leaves you with instructions. No stairs. No washing linens. No lifting anything heavier than the child. You nod, then break half of them within 2 days. Because the world doesn't pause. But you do your best. You rest when you can. Nap when the baby naps. Sip broth. Chew slowly. Dream in brief, foggy fragments. And when the baby cries at midnight, you do not panic. You rise. You hum the lullaby. And you hold her until the world feels soft again. You stop counting the days. Time is measured now in cries and naps, in feedings and fevers narrowly avoided. You watch the sun rise and fall through the same crack in the shutters, and sometimes it feels like the outside world has gone on without you entirely. Other times, it feels like the whole village is leaning in, waiting for something to go wrong. You keep the baby close, always. You sleep with her on your chest, her breath warm against your collarbone. You bathe her in water, just warm enough to soothe, and just cold enough to ward off soul softness, whatever that means. Agnes insists on it. Too warm, and the child forgets to be strong. But strength isn't your concern today. Today, it's the baptism. You rise early, still sore, still bleeding, just a little, and wrap the baby in your cleanest linen. It's coarse, slightly frayed, but at least it's dry. Your husband brings water to heat. Someone's already fetched the priest. Baptism is not just tradition, it's protection. The moment a baby is born, the clock starts ticking. Unbaptized infants are seen as liminal beings, teetering between the sacred and the cursed. Should they die before the rite, there's no place for them in heaven. No name, no welcome. Historians still argue whether this belief came from church doctrine or village folklore. Likely both. Either way, no one dares delay. Agnes warns you gently. Most babies cry during it. It's good. Means they're breathing. Means the spirits are being chased out. You carry your daughter to the church. It's cold. Your legs shake. You grip the baby tightly, head down, stepping carefully around puddles and the neighbor's gawking eyes. Someone whispers, "Too soon," as you pass. You ignore it. You know the rules. Father Bernard is waiting. He frowns when he sees you. "She's still bleeding," he murmurs to your husband. "She's alive," Agnes says. "That'll do." The baptism is brief. Bernard mutters Latin, faster than usual. The font is stone cold and slick with old water. You hold your breath as he pours it over her forehead. She gasps, then screams. Loud, powerful, angry. Good. You nearly cry from relief. He names her. A saint's name. You chose it yourself, long ago, whispered into the fire during one of those lonely nights when your belly still felt more like a burden than a blessing. You mouth it now like a charm. Afterward, the women nod. A few even smile. Ethelwyn says, "Now she's safe." You don't believe in total safety anymore, but you nod just the same. Back home, you lay her in the cradle, carved by your husband, finally useful, and wrap her tight. She sleeps. You don't. You're listening for the bell, because not all baptisms are joyous. That same morning, you hear it, the low, dull toll of the death bell. Someone else's baby, a woman 3 houses down. You barely knew her. She was further along than you, quieter. She died yesterday. The baby lasted a few hours. No one says her name aloud. You light a candle, anyway. You keep your baby close. You watch her breathe. The line between joy and grief is thinner than your shift. And you live on it now. A fringe custom says to place a pinch of salt in a newborn's mouth during the first thunderstorm. To make her brave, you do it the next day, even though Agnes rolls her eyes. You need all the help you can get. The baby won't nurse that afternoon. You panic. She's hot. Not screaming. Worse, she's quiet. You rock her, bounce her, whisper prayers and curses alike. Agnes returns just in time. She places her lips near the child's and listens. She's breathing, she says, but lightly. She mixes something with goat's milk and coaxes it into the baby's mouth with a soft rag. The baby gags, then swallows. Slowly, then more. Crisis past. For now, you sob like the roof caved in. Because in this village, most babies don't make it through their first year. Everyone knows this. No one says it directly. They say, if God wills it. Or, she's a strong one. Or, you'll have more. You don't want more right now. You just want this one to stay. You mark her breaths like they're beads on a rosary. You refuse to let the fire die. And you count. 5 days. Then 10. Then 15. Each one a victory. Your husband starts, saying her name more confidently. You hold her with both hands now. Not like she's glass, but like she's his. Sometimes, you catch him humming the lullaby. Off-key, but close enough. The baby starts to smile, maybe gas, maybe recognition. It doesn't matter. You take it as a sign. You are healing. Slowly. But not all scars show on skin. The snow has started to melt. Not quickly. Just a quiet drip from the eaves, a patch of mud by the well, the scent of thaw in the air. You're sitting on a stool outside your doorway, wrapped in your old wool cloak, baby in arms. She's bigger now, fuller. Her head rests solidly against your chest. When she sighs, it sounds like wind through tall grass. You survived. You think. There's no grand parade, no feast, no painted medal for making it. Just quiet days that feel a little longer, a little softer. The bleeding has stopped. The fevers have passed. Your body still hurts, but in familiar ways, like an old song played too often. People nod at you differently now, with respect, or relief, or suspicion, depending on who you ask. Some think you got lucky. Some think you owe Agnes everything. Some whisper that you're stronger than you look. You don't bother correcting any of them. You sweep the threshold every morning with a slow, purposeful rhythm, as much habit as ritual. Not because it needs sweeping, but because it reminds you that the floor is yours, the hearth is lit, and the baby is still breathing. You never stop listening for her breath, even in sleep. Your husband is better. He brings you milk without being asked. He warms the cloths by the fire. Once, he even offered to take the baby when she cried. His hands were awkward, but she didn't scream. You take what you can get. Agnes still visits. Less often now. She sits with you, rolls her aching shoulders, watches the baby with a practiced eye. Strong neck, she says. Sharp cry. That's a good sign. You ask, what about me? She squints at you, then says, still bleeding inside, but less. She's right. Not about your womb, exactly, but something deeper. There are parts of you that haven't quite come back. Maybe they won't. Maybe they shouldn't. Because how can you ever return to the woman you were, when every part of your body now remembers pain like an old friend? Even your hay feels different. Coarser, more brittle. You catch your reflection in a puddle and barely recognize yourself. Eyes hollowed by exhaustion, hands cracked, but with a baby pressed against your heart like a promise. Historians still debate whether childbirth was seen as a beginning or a kind of death followed by resurrection. You think, maybe both, because something has died. A version of you that didn't understand what blood and fire and survival really meant. You bury her quietly, without ceremony, and you move forward. Your milk finally flows easily. The baby nurses without fuss. You hum to her, even when you're not thinking. The same lullaby. It's stitched into your mouth now, into your bones. Some nights, the nightmares still come. The dark room, the pain, the feeling that your soul had to choose between staying and slipping out the open window. You always wake up, and you always reach for her. She stays, sighs, and goes back to sleep. You begin to count time differently again. Not in weeks, but in milestones. She opens her eyes and stays into yours. She reaches for your nose. She giggles. Once, so suddenly you nearly cry. The world begins to unfold again. The villagers start to ask what name you'll call her by. You already know. You say it with pride. It tastes strong. Whole. Like with smoke and morning fog and the sound of bells that didn't toll for you. You walk further now. To the well. To the stream. Even to the edge of the woods. You wear her strapped across your chest with a length of woven wool. And for the first time in months, your hands are free. Free to gather herbs. To pat the neighbor's goat. To touch a daffodil and not immediately fear what omen it holds. You run into Ethelwyn on one of these walks. She studies you, then says, "You did better than I thought." You smile, just a little, then reply, "So did she." Fringe belief. Some women in nearby villages keep a stone from the bathing hearth under their bed for the rest of their lives. To remind the earth you already bled, they say. You've hidden one beneath your pillow. You don't tell anyone, because there's still fear. You hear of another woman lost last week. Her second birth. They say she tore badly. The midwife was too late. The baby lived. The mother didn't. You touch your daughter's cheek and say nothing. Instead, you sit by the fire. You stitch slowly, though your fingers still tremble on cold days. And when the baby whimpers, you lift her, hold her tight, and whisper her name like a spell. Your body has changed. So has your mind. You've been unmade and rewoven. And some mornings, when the light hits just right, and the baby laughs without reason, you realize something wild and quiet. You are still here. You both are. Now the fire burns low, casting gentle shadows on the walls. Your breath softens. The world outside is still. The pain has faded, the fever long gone, the memories dulled into something more like story than scar. You've passed through the hardest door a woman can cross in this time and place, and on the other side is quiet. Not ease, not perfection, not peace exactly, but quiet. Your baby sleeps soundly now. Her fists are unclenched. Her breath is steady. Her warmth presses into you like a reminder that all the blood, all the whispers, all the days you doubted your strength were not for nothing. The village doesn't speak of what you endured, but you do. You speak it in lullabies, in the careful stirring of stew, in the way you reach for her without thinking. and how you count her eyelashes when no one else is looking. Outside, the grass is growing again. The wind is warmer, and though there are still bells that toll, tonight they do not toll for you. Your story doesn't end in fear. It ends in breath, in softness, in survival. So rest now. You've earned it. Let the fire crackle one last time. Let the baby's dreams settle deep and sweet. Let your shoulders drop, your eyes close, and your heart beat slow. You're home, and the world, for a moment, is quiet.